And we're live. Content provided at the event is for general information only, not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance reference is historical, no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged, may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Gimbal Financial, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. I don't know about you guys, but my adrenaline is running this morning.
Nice work. This technology thing is just a thing to keep me young, that's for sure.
It's a roller coaster.
That two technology's not working today.
For those of you who are just joining us, we just joined ourselves. We were really scrambling. Somehow we just weren't able to log on and get each other together. So thankfully, with literally 2 minutes to spare, we were able to get online, and here we are.
We're here, we're live.
In addition to that, we, weekly, we like to update you all on stock markets and see what's happening with markets. And this week has had tons of just activity, and unfortunately our charting system is down, and so Keith has done a wonder trying to find an alternative source for us to talk about these things. But I thought I'd just jump right in right away and talk about what's going on in the political scene and how that is working out in the stock market. It's interesting. Some of the different people that we listen to from time to time really indicates, and so that I just want to share. And these ideas is that the government never makes anything for you. It doesn't create, it doesn't invent, and so people do that. And so when there's going to be gridlock in Washington, the stock market doesn't mind that, because it allows Washington to have to battle things out. And the marketplace can then say, okay, great, we can innovate, we can make things more efficient, and the government is just not in the market's way as much. And so that could be a very exciting thing to look forward to over the next 4 years. I know I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing what industries really start to get ahead and start to work. And so we'll be paying attention to different sleeves of the economy. We always talk about utilities or technology or healthcare or building materials. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the economy works and then how free enterprise keeps chugging along. But that's my take on what's happening with if it's a blue state or a red state popping up on your computer or your phone. I have no idea what's going to happen. I tend to think that Biden's got this, but really the stock market, it's just looking for new ways to make some money. You guys see anything differently than that?
I do. One thing I know is that the government has had a growth industry that has been growing my entire career. So I'd have to contradict what you've said, Doug, is that I don't know any organization that can create rules and regulations at the velocity and the capacity that the federal government does. So that leads me to believe that Amanda has done a good job keeping our disclaimers going. And so who knows what all this is going to mean? I mean, to me, watching what's going on with COVID and seeing all the regulations that have been put in place because of a flu type thing that's just a little bit more elevated than the 1958 or 1968 pandemics has been unbelievable. So I don't know how that's all going to work out in the months ahead, but I do think creativity will be the way around it. And I'm excited. I know for myself that in past elections that I let those things get emotional to me and they clouded my vision. I didn't watch any of the election returns on election night. I haven't really done much reviews of what's been going on because I think the market's going to tell me what's going on. And so far, the market seems to be pretty excited that we're going to have a split government. It allows the government to do less when it's split. And so that's what the market seems to be saying.
I can tell you this, I've had the best sleep I've had in weeks. And it's mainly because I've been going to bed early and I've been doing yard work. The fall and the sheaves, we call it leaf season. And so I've been doing tons of yard work, and I just haven't had the energy to pay attention to the politics. I've been reading the stock market, see what's going on in the stock market, but I just haven't had too much energy for the politics. It'll come, but yeah. So stay focused out there. Stay optimistic about the opportunities for your family and what's going on in your lives. Keith, do you want to talk? Do you want to take a look at some charts, or how are you feeling about that today?
I can do that, yeah. Or Amanda, what do you have on your mind before one thing I didn't do is look up the symbols. They're stored on my computer, so I gotta find the symbols. But anything going on that we need to know about, Amanda?
The only thing that I was going to contribute is that I was listening to one of the economists that we like to follow this morning, and he was very encouraged by entrepreneurship and innovation, and that's just what we've been continued to repeat here on this show. And I had one other thought, and it just escaped me. So
Well,
I'm encouraged as well, but.
Yeah, let me show you guys some charts and let's just talk about what's going on in the real world. And let me share my screen here real quickly. Tell me if you see a chart, because I always get confused on how this crazy thing works. But
looks like we're looking at the volatility index.
Yeah, the VIX is called the SIBO Volatility Index, is what it measures stock options, which we can explain to you in another time. But as for today, it just shows you, and this is a 1-year trailing index. And I talked a little bit about this last week, that this spike that we had in the March-April timeframe is really, there's only been a time, I think one other time that this index has shot up that high. And it gives you, this gives you an indication that it's a difficult time in the market. And most of the time when this thing is trading above 30, it makes it really challenging for investing for the long haul. It spiked up last week over 40, which has just happened less than 10 times in history. And then the activity, I think the pressure valve of the market, once the election was behind it, I think the market saw that we're going to have a split Congress, kind of let some of that pressure off of there. I suppose that it's, we're still right at that 30 level. We're much higher than we were a year ago when we were down at the 15 levels. So this is not an easy market to be successful in for investors. It's just a challenging one.
Yeah, I would say it's been a challenging one on really all fronts. There's been times where the more conservative type stocks, the dividend payers have been challenged. And then even as of late, some of the more technology stocks have really been challenged since September. So we're continuously looking for opportunities for you, and we do it based on supply and demand. And that's really what we're trying to highlight and educate when we look at these charts together.
So those that have joined us, I hope you can appreciate my sense of humor and sarcasm. I have to laugh at things. Capitalism's really funny if you appreciate it in its own way. And so I put another chart up here. I don't know if you can see this or not. Do you see the symbol MJ up there?
Yeah. What is this, Keith? I'm not familiar with this one.
Yeah, whatever. So growing up in Evansville, there was a company called Mead Johnson, and all the hipsters know Michael Jordan. But what this one stands for is Mary Jane, marijuana.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And this one, I just pointed this out because the sense of humor of it is that you saw this thing was nearly 20 a year ago, and just went into, it dropped to down here about 8.5, 9, in the election. It was pretty excited about that, and so it tells me, and you guys can watch in the months ahead what that might mean. But I'm wondering if that isn't trying to foreshadow something going on in that particular commodity in the months ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that would technically be a commodity stock if I'm not mistaken. And so we can include that on the corn report and the beans report next.
What I will report to you all, Amanda's done a few on the road videos with me, and I might have mentioned this in the past, but in one of our most recent trips, we went to North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, and in 3 separate hotel experiences, all 3 of them, not that I know exactly what marijuana smells like, but all 3 of them, the hallway in which the room we were staying in had that distinct smell as though maybe a skunk had run up and down the hallway. So I thought that was really interesting as well. I put up another commodity on here that we had talked weeks ago about gold. Gold had run up, and it just shot up from this June, July time frame from about 165 to 195, which is a 20% gain, and then it normalized out here. In some past elections, it's actually run up prior to the election, and this one didn't do it. And I noticed that Bitcoin had a little bit of a run up during the election time, and so I don't know if that's how some people are doing that, but silver was kind of a similar pattern with that. So the commodities haven't gone wild, but they've picked up these last couple of days a little bit.
Yeah, it's been good to see them holding their own too and not giving back all of their gains. That's been very encouraging. Sometimes things go up quickly and they go down just as quickly. And so I like to see this one smoothing out a little bit.
Let me see if I can get this. I don't know exactly what I'm doing here, so if you'll all be patient with me. This I'm looking for the
Russell 2000.
yeah. See, no, it didn't like that. Let's go back. Let's see if I don't see how you search for a chart symbol on this one, but let's talk
RUT.
RUT.
Yeah.
Saying I'm in a rut here. Nice.
Amanda. Wow, that was awesome.
Thank you, Google.
You don't have to disclose your sources.
I'm just not trying to be a fraud.
So I want to just point out something that might be optimistic as you investors that have joined us, and we appreciate you joining us each week. But and again, I don't know how to. Yeah, this thing doesn't let me kind of find the date like my normal software, so I'm learning here. But right around here, do you see me circling the peak right here? Right around here, we had a sell-off on the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. And this was the peak on those 2 indices right there. This thing sold off, and then all of a sudden it rallied above that peak. Okay, you with me? Amanda, tell me the S&P 500 one then, so I can go to that.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot now.
I'll try SPY. This is a ETF.
Yeah, that should be it.
Yeah, so see how that same place over here where SPY peaked out? You guys, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we haven't reclaimed that. And then the same thing when we go to the QQQs, which they're symbolic. They're not the same as the NASDAQ. See that?
This should have been happening around September 2nd or 3rd, right around there.
Yeah, right around the 1st of there. So what I wanted to point out is the Russell 2000, the S&P 600. Those are smaller companies. It's a broader base index. And we really haven't seen, it's been months, if not years, where we've seen leadership from those 2. And they have handled this. This has been a really challenge. If you just look at the Qs here, this has been a challenging time just to hold tight. We've taken some profits and tried to get into this thing, and it's kind of been a little choppy, but we've moved, I think, a bias towards those other 2, towards the mid-cap stocks, mid-sized companies. Sorry for using the word caps. Mid-sized companies and small companies tend to be taking a lead here, and they tend to do well during times coming out of recessions.
And we see that, and we have the conviction based on the demand for the shares. So we're constantly trying to see what is the demand, what's the supply overhead. Yeah, we're looking at price too, just like the rest of the world, but we're also paying attention to how are the shareholders voting right now? And that tells us whether we want to be super optimistic or maybe a little more reserved.
Let's go back to my Mary Jane. I just had a thought about that. I
feel like I should turn on some Tom Petty or some, you know.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but
I just had to chill out a little bit.
I've had to learn and grow from my youthful biases that I had when I was around your age, Amanda, to adapt to an ever-changing world and to consider things differently. And I'm not saying I'm a pot smoker. I'm just saying the world has.
I never inhaled, Keith.
Yeah. So what I am alluding to is I was idealistic many, many years ago when I got into business, and I thought that I could buy investments for clients that didn't have what were called the so-called sin stocks. Those back then were alcohol, tobacco, and a number of other things. Ironically, in the last 30 plus years, what's been defined as sin and sin stocks has just expanded to, like, what I may say is a sin stock, you may say isn't.
Could be McDonald's today.
Right, yeah, exactly. Or Exxon could be a sin stock.
Exxon, yeah, right.
Yeah, and so that whole process of thinking that way has really challenged me as an individual to consider the world differently. It doesn't mean that my morality has changed. I just had to think through the world differently and try to help people differently than I've ever had to think in my whole career, because I don't know what sorts of things are specifically offensive to our client base, and nothing individually is going to be offensive because we have so many different clients with so many different personalities. So I think trying to invest in companies that won't be offensive to a broad-based group of people is nearly impossible today. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, as technology has improved, though, we have the abilities to single out some of these companies. If there's one that you just don't want to own, we can put restrictions on it. And so those types of conversations one-on-one would really benefit you and us, because we'd be on the same page, knowing where you're at. It's pretty tough to dive into, you know, companies to even know where they truly stand on issues. So you might have an issue that you're biased against or towards, and deep down in that company, they may be a supporter of it. And so it gets kind of tricky to know, but we do have the technology to be able to restrict those types of buys if you would like them.
It's a confusing world, is all I know. Is I was in a meeting, it's probably 30 years ago. There was a young Indianapolis prosecutor at the time. Stephen Goldsmith was his name. He eventually became the mayor. This was a small meeting. There were like 6 of us in the room. And the conversation was, do we make lotteries legal in Indiana? And I had a college roommate that had struggled with gambling, so I had a strong opinion about it. I personally think gambling is a very, very dangerous thing. I've seen what it did to his life, and I saw what it did to his family's lives, and so I had a strong opinion. And what Goldsmith said in that meeting, as the prosecutor, because there were gambling games going on the streets of Indianapolis, and he, as the prosecutor, had been prosecuting people. And he said he just didn't understand how, as the prosecutor, he could continue to prosecute citizens when his employer is saying gambling's okay for them. So it's okay for us, but it's not okay for you. And so
I see what stock you pulled up here, and this one is near and dear to me as well. I have a bias against gambling, and especially raising boys. They play fantasy football and all this stuff, and there is now new angles that are advertising and coming at them. What made you pull up this stock here?
Well, I was just using it as an example. I don't think that, because our meeting didn't give us much cursor of time to discuss what we were talking about. And this idea, we're kind of going impromptu. Usually we have an outline, whether you all know it or not, but this idea of SIM stocks and how do you invest in a world that is very squishy just struck me. And this stock caught a lot of people's attention. It did well when the market was getting smacked around. It went from 20 to 40, doubled in about a 3-month period of time here, traded flat, and then it shot up and then it came back down. A lot of times these stocks will go up at a similar angle that they come down. I'm not sure. I feel like MJ signed the contract. Michael Jordan signed a contract with these guys to be a spokesperson for him. And that's what I think caused this run up in late September. And then I don't know why it's dropped off, but I noticed something I was watching last night had a competitor to this offering a free $5 bet with 25 to 1 odds. So if you bet $5, you get 125. And it was like what they call in the gambling business a lock. It's like impossible that this thing isn't going to win. So basically you risk $5 and they're going to give you $125. And that is offensive to me because I've seen the damage that this particular industry can do to people in their lives. And that particular advertisement I saw is like going around the playground and giving kids free drugs is kind of what I thought when I saw it. It was offensive to me. If you guys are gamblers out there, I'm not offended by your pastime. I just don't like the risk that it would bring to the street boys because you've got a generation that's grown up playing video games, and that's kind of what this looks like, and it's just really dangerous.
Even growing in changing thoughts and developing worldviews, something I ran across that I think was pretty interesting this week, and I can't remember the guy's name. I'd have to get on the Google to remember his name, but I do remember, I believe he was a University of Chicago professor. And he was, Amanda, Dad's alma mater, he was saying that you could accomplish a financial plan on the back of a note card. And so I thought, well, my note cards are kind of big. but I thought, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And I thought, okay, continue learning. Pay bills weekly. I've got to pay them weekly because if I let them run too long, so I have to stay on top of it weekly. That's just me. Maxing out my 401k, keeping a cushion, spend money. Is that ever on a financial plan? Spend money on family experiences. Target zero debt before retirement. Have some auto contributions for investments. Review wills. Make sure your insurance is up to date. And I would be curious, many of you, we have done financial plans for, and maybe we haven't reviewed them recently. Maybe it's been a couple of years, but I would be curious if you would write down on an index card, take a picture and email it to us. Let's see where you are. But my views on financial planning have changed so much. Above me is my CFP, my CFP certificate, and that's a whole nother story. But I believe that you can simplify things greatly, whether the professor's right or wrong. What this does is it gets the brain moving and thinking. When I first started in the business, you'd buy a financial plan from a financial professional, and it'd be this big binder looking thing that would just collect dust. And so what could we do to simplify and actually make this relevant for your life with the last couple months of 2020? Shoot that over to us. I'd be interested what you think, and then maybe we could help add some value to it.
That's great.
I changed my financial plan in 1996, 97, and in that change of financial plan just came some freedoms and some liberties, and enabled me to see the world differently than most financial advisors. And along with that, it enabled me early on during our friendship and relationship, Doug, in 2006. I took the whole summer off as an employee. I was gone the whole summer, and had I if you're self-employed, you have a dictator as a boss, I think. So, the idea of doing that, I didn't know anybody, like the bewilderment of people telling them I was taking the entire summer off. They couldn't comprehend it, but it required me to trust you and our team, which is really what makes Gimbal, I think, a spectacular place to work and to trust as advisors, because we trust one another and we have the flexibility and autonomy to do things that are unique. But that change in my financial plan from the traditional financial plan revolutionized my world. And I would suggest that if you are locked into the traditional way of thinking about your finances, that you probably have been a little hoodwinked by our industry. I don't want to badmouth our industry, but I can't think of too many arms of our industry that aren't incentivized by getting a hold of your finances one way or another. I mean, we get paid by you guys by helping you manage it, but if you have a mortgage, the banks make money from your mortgage, right? So there's just not too many altruistic people out there helping you with your finances. I like to think that we're about as close as there is out there. That might sound a little self-serving, but I just think that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, just a great reminder to stay flexible and keep learning. And your financial plan, where you guys are, has changed dramatically, I'm sure, since the last time you looked at your financial plan. I know ours has as a family. You know, my wife's back to work, and just little things like, you know, we have a different insurance group to look at and learn about. And so what's changing with your financial plan? What's working? What hasn't worked? What did you have on there that you thought was really important? Is it still important? These are the types of conversations that we'd like to have with you. And part of that financial plan, for some of you I know, has been to release. And many of you who have been taking required minimum distributions have used your charitable RMD to take care of some of those things that are important to you when you release your own money. And I want to remind you, and this goes out to everybody who's going to file a tax return. Keith, I think you brought this up in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. I know you brought it up to me, but everybody out there today, you can deduct $300 from your taxable income this year. And so you don't have to itemize. You could take the standard deduction. And so if you haven't given $300 yet, go for it. Find something that you believe in, something that makes you happy, or maybe makes your wife or your kids happy, and contribute towards it, because it's a great deal for 2020, the $300 charitable contribution.
That's great advice. Well, Keith, do you have anything else to say today?
I do. I may spend the rest of the weekend pondering this, but this was pretty funny. So I was at the coffee shop today and I got my coffee, and I have to read it to you because this young teenager, she got my coffee and she's, pouring the cream in for me, and she goes, "Boy, that smells good." And I didn't think anything about it, but this is what she said. She said, "It's funny, with a mask you can't hear, but I can still smell." Think about it. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, she doesn't have the COVID. She can still smell.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe you have to be my age to appreciate what you can't hear with a mask on. It's really funny. All right. That's all I got. But that was my highlight of the day. I just got a kick out of her comment.
I'll ponder that over the weekend. Thanks so much, guys.
Hey, have a great weekend, everybody.
Don't forget Curious Investors tomorrow morning. If you want to be there, Amanda will send you an email. Take care.
Bye, guys.